Hey, don't we all? It's Mr. Majewski chiming in here to review some of the development. Now, I want to remind you all, we covered development earlier in the year. So this is a super fast, speedy review of what we have already covered. So keep that in mind. If you need to go back and refresh the original development notes, slides, and videos, make sure you go back to your development unit or find them on the YouTube page. So this is going to be fast, much faster than the last video that we just looked at. We're going to start with HDI. Remember, HDI is something that was compiled by the UN. It's an index, so it's a measure of development in a country using 4 different indicators that fall within 3, I guess we'll call them dimensions or categories of development. If you remember, HDI is measured out of 1.0, so the highest score you can get is a 1.0. It essentially means you have 100% development in your country. That's impossible. No country has it. Lowest possible score is a 0.0, which essentially would mean you have 0% development in your country. Again, no country is close to that. But the higher you are to 1.0, the better you're doing in terms of development according to the UN. And the lower you are doing, obviously, the more work you have to do in regards to development. So first off, the first indicator is life expectancy. And of course, that's a measure of healthy living within your country. And so higher life expectancies obviously result in higher scores on the HDI. There are 2 categories involved in the dimension of knowledge. They are the expected years of schooling that a person is going to receive in a country, and then the mean or actual years of schooling. Mean is how much people are currently getting on average in that country. Expected is what we could expect somebody that is born there today to receive throughout their life. Together, those 2 make up the education or knowledge dimension of the HDI. And then finally, GNI per capita, which is a rough, crude measure of the overall standard of living or wealth level in a country. That's the total value of all goods and services that are produced in a country in a year divided by the population. Again, each of these indicators, there's 4 of them, make up 25% of your overall HDI. You take them together and you get your overall HDI score. We have a great video here that you need to watch on HDI.
Human development is a concept of development that has to do
You know what? Screw it. We'll watch it.
and improving of living conditions, where people can develop their full potential, can have a long and healthy life, can have access to an appropriate education system, can develop their potential to the fullest, and be productive in order to have the opportunity to live according to their needs and interests. Human development in this aspect is about expanding the choices people have to lead qualitative lives. It is exactly those people who should be in the center of development process. Thus, human development means the capability for a long and happy life, for a qualitative education, and participation in economy to lead a life with dignity. Furthermore, the development does not concentrate on the amount of money a person gets, but on how much is invested in people. For example, as we know, the money can be used for medicine purchase, but also for the purchase of narcotic substances. Money can be used for military equipment, but also for construction of schools. Human development fights inequalities and promotes a life with dignity for all people worldwide, regardless of their origin, gender, and skin color. Sustainable human development means the creation of the same opportunities for next generations who have the same rights as their parents for a dignified life. The ethnical, political, social, economic, gender inequalities are some of the barriers for sustainable human development. They are the source of conflicts, migration, and other problems that disable a dignified life and have devastating long-term consequences. Sustainability is a crucial aspect considering the growth of population, which causes a higher consumption, which on the other hand damages living environments beyond its capacities. Based on data, With the growth of population in a world with 7 billion people this year, in 2050, the number will be approximately 9 billion. We buy new cars only because they look more striking. We buy new computers, new phones. If we don't stop doing this, we won't be able to stop the garbage and waste and the use of resources that belong to at least 3 planets that in fact we have only one. Only a sustainable human development can balance this predictable phenomenon. Manufacturers will produce more. We will be encouraged to buy more. We will get more loans. And at the end, we will produce more waste that overpasses the existing resources. Only if we change our consumption behavior, we and our children will have a prosperous future.
Wow. Okay. Well, that was one I would describe as a little overproduced. There was a lot going on there constantly. They need to get rid of some of those effects. Secondly, I don't want to be, I don't want to like sit around the campfire, hold hands, and sing Kumbaya here. But these are important things, right? And these are issues that we need to tackle globally, right? And that's the whole point of the UN, is that to boost worldwide development, it requires worldwide cooperation for worldwide solutions to worldwide problems. All right. And yeah, that video definitely likes and values HDI and the efforts towards it. Okay. So I mentioned to you that GNI per capita, right? And that's the value of everything that a country produces in a year divided by the population. That GNI is a good measure of development, and usually countries that are more developed have higher GNIs. Take a look at North America, right? Look at the GNIs, very high, right? Look at Europe, particularly Western and Northern Europe. My goodness. We're going to go to Japan, right? Let's look at Oceania, holy moly, right? Look at the wealth levels there. Contrast that, of course, with Central and South America, right? Which generally are less developed regions. Sub-Saharan Africa, you got, lots of parts of Asia, right? East Asia there, South Asia there, Southeast Asia. Again, you're seeing real differences in GNI, and so it's a good measure of development, right? Because right there you can see, hey, if we look at the development map, it's going to be very similar to what we're seeing here with GNI, all right? Again, we used to use GDP, or GNP. We've converted them into GNI. It's a better measure of overall wealth in a country. Don't focus too much on GDP or GNP. Just know if you see a question with those, we're using the term GNI now, and that's all it means. All right. Again, wealth distribution around the world, right? This is a measure of wealth distribution. Generally speaking, the more wealth distribution is, the worse off you are, I guess you could say. And so again, a lot of times in developing countries is where you really see the gap between the wealthier and the poorest people is the largest. Okay. Total fertility rates is another measure that we don't use in HDI, but is another measure of development. Obviously, the more TFR you have, right, that's an indication that women equality is probably not as high. Medical facilities, medical care, right, probably not as high availability or access to contraceptives, right, which is generally a measure of overall public health, is low. And so TFR is high in places where development tends to be low. Conversely, TFR, total fertility, is low in places where development is high. Again, this also has to do with behavioral patterns. Remember, as development increases, women tend to work more, go to school more, and therefore have fewer children, delay childbirth, delay marriage, and so that has profound social impacts. IMR, remember, infant mortality, also a measure of development, though not used in HDI. Same story here. Less developed regions of the world tend to have higher IMR for the same reasons we've talked about. Let's go to access to healthcare. All of these things are really included, right, in the overall measure of development, even if they're not used in HDI. Oil consumption is usually, more developed you are, or developing, the more reliant you are on fossil fuels, right? Obviously, the U.S. and Europe used to be the biggest consumers. Nowadays, it's actually China and India that are quickly rising to surpass us. Literacy rates is another measure of development, though not used in HDI. Again, a good measure of overall educational attainment and access. Countries in the red in this tend to have the highest literacy rates, over 99%. Yellows and greens tend to be 90% or lower. Think of how much a literacy rate, or I should say an illiterate population, or even a sizable one, how much that would reduce productivity, efficiency, right? Think of the jobs that are denied to you if you are not literate. All of these impact the overall development of an individual, a community, and a country as a result. All right? Excuse me. Explain how and to what extent changes in economic development have contributed to gender parity. Okay, well, we've already mentioned, hey, gender equality is a major measure of development as well. It's the other major measure. And countries that have gender equality or as close to it as possible tend to be the most developed. A lot of ways you can see how a country is doing by its treatment of women. All right, there's an awesome video that you do need to watch here. It's only 3.5 minutes, but watch it. Gender equality works. It's a really cool explanation as to why gender empowerment and gender equality is so important. All right. Role of women change as the countries develop, right? The glass ceiling is the term we use to describe how high a woman can achieve in society. The glass ceiling tends to rise in countries as women take on not only higher paying but more powerful roles. I would also like to mention that there's a lot of buzz around the idea of microloans for women. Microloans are loans that are usually done online, right, by individuals or small groups. They give loans on their own through GoFundMe and other sites to women businesses and really help them to expand. It can be a way for a country to develop in a non-traditional way. So a lot of sub-Saharan African countries are seeing some boost to development thanks to microloans coming in from individuals around the rest of the world. All right, women do not have equity or wages when it comes to employment. We know that no matter where they are. However, the gaps tend to be worse in developing countries than they are in developed countries. Let's get to this whole sustainability piece as well. Sustainability, remember, is the idea that we want to consume and produce efficiently, and we want to meet our needs, but also provide the future generations the opportunity to meet their own needs as well. All right, sustainability usually revolves around reducing the amount of resource consumption. We are depleting a lot of resources faster than we are replenishing them. So consumption, right, is a big problem. Also, sustainability focuses on reducing pollution, right, the costs and the impacts of pollution. Climate change as well is now a major part of sustainability because if we do not stop this climate change, then very possibly, right, production options available to us now may not be available down the road. Human health is another area where sustainability matters. And equality, social equality, economic equality, women, right, ethnicities, races, that's part of the sustainability piece as well. All right, we had a nice little video on sustainability in India. I think you're going to enjoy this. It's very it's very short. This is a nice little comparison of renewable and non-renewable energies, which is all part of your 11.3 chapter guide. Remember, sustainability focuses more on renewable energy sources, right, as opposed to the non-renewable, which is what we have traditionally relied on. These are finite. These are the ones that tend to be the bigger polluters. These are the ones that we tend to have less of, and we're more reliant on other countries for. These are more experimental. They're newer. They can be very expensive to produce, especially at first. But obviously the long-term impacts of these are believed to be better for us societally. Another new thing you need to be familiar with is ecotourism. Ecotourism is a strategy that developing countries can use to not only help the environment, protect the environment, but also to boost development and to generate jobs. You use your local environment to attract tourists to take advantage of the incredible natural wonders that your country can provide. This is very popular in Central America with a lot of tropical locations. The Amazon rainforest is popular. It's popular in Africa, particularly safari areas. Even in the Himalayas, right, with Mount Everest and other things like that, countries really have made tourism, and especially environmentally specific tourism, part of their GNI and part of their overall development plan. All right, here's a nice little video on what ecotourism is. Please watch. Again, I've kept the videos very short this time around, so I hope you will watch them. Here's a good example, Mount Everest right at the top of it, right? You see an image that shows a lot of the different flags and what do I call that? I guess waste that has been left by individuals who are taking advantage of this. You got to spend something like $50,000 just to get a permit in order to hike this, but this is a way that the countries around here, particularly Nepal, have been able to boost their development thanks to tourism from developed countries. All right, I'm going to stop there. I want to remind everybody we have development slides the first go round that are available to you and videos. Please consider watching those. All right, Mr. M signing off here. Let me know if you have any questions here with this development review.